I'm Corbett Wall with USDA Livestock and Grain Market News, here with your weekly feeder and stocker cattle market summary for the week ending February the 8th, where you had feeder cattle going right into the feedlot weighing over 700 pounds, selling weak to $3 lower. The bulk of the decline there was on the weights over 800 pounds. Your middleweight kind of cattle, your heavier calves, still mostly feeder cattle, but those showing some flesh, and just not really your stocker type cattle, but your fleshier type heavy calves going into either a growing yard or maybe straight onto the feedlot, so mostly steady. While your calves weighing under 500 pounds and your stocker kind of cattle that have the condition to go right on it and start gaining that easy weight turned out somewhere, sold firm to $5 higher, especially down in the southeast, where it was noticeably higher throughout the entire southeast, all the way from the mid-Atlantic back over to South Texas there, as you can tell that those western orders are starting to come in from the areas up through where we've seen the worst part of the drought last 2 years really, but the temperatures have been unseasonably warm, and there has been some signs of moisture, some snow that's melted and some spotty rains come through those areas, and those guys are just starting to think spring. They know these numbers are going to be really tight, so they'd like to get some of those calves sold up as quick as they can. Most all your calves weighing under 450 pounds throughout the southeast and coming well up into the lower part of the Midwest, all those lighter calves are now bringing up to $2 a pound and quite a bit higher, with your 3-weight steers and bulls almost entirely in the $2 and up range right in there. But on your heavier cattle, last week's rally just fizzled out this week. There was hardly any carryover at all from last week's higher market on those feeder type cattle, and it's almost entirely to blame on these feedlot closeouts. These guys that are feeding cattle are just getting so tired of losing money. A lot of these cattle now losing $150 a head, and you can only take so much of that. It's not the cattle's fault at all. These cattle are still really gaining good. The feedlot performance has really been outstanding for about 2 years now, and nobody talks about 3 pounds a day gain anymore. Everybody's talking about 4 pounds a day, and maybe even more than that. But it's just the feed costs have mounted and got so high, and not just on corn, but also on your roughages and even your distillers. But everything's just gotten so high, it's almost impossible to make a profit on any cattle right now. You know, these cattle that are selling finished right now, when those cattle were bought, we just assumed that the fed cattle market would have been over $1.30 now, and the tighter numbers would be showing up, and we'd really be gaining ground all the time, and we're not at all. This week, fat sold steady to $1 lower on light demand and another light movement, as they're just buying just barely what they need to buy, or establish enough cattle sold so that they can buy their formula cattle for the next week. And the price was $1.25 predominantly through the 5 areas on a live basis, and dress sales were lower, mostly $2, but there's just not any momentum in the fat cattle market right now. It's pretty bearish. These change speeds have been slowed down. This week's weekly slaughter on cattle is going to be less than 600,000, and we just don't hardly ever see that, or we haven't in the past, other than on a holiday week or a week where they had some plant shutdowns or repairs or something like that. But this was the first full week that Plainview, Cargill was dark, and it didn't help anything as far as your box beef. There was no more demand there. Box beef prices struggled again this week and have been struggling, and they're, you know, the averages select and choice together, which are pretty close right now, and we're down just struggling around $1.80 on your box beef cutout values. This week's regional weighted averages on your feeder cattle in the north central states, 800 to 900 pound steers this week brought 139.69 compared to 142.29 last week and 147.16 a year ago. Down in the south central states, a 7 to 800 pound steer cost you $145.14 compared to $146.54 last week and $153.87 a year ago. Down in the southeast, a 4 to 500 pound steer on order there, $178.21 compared to $173.65, almost $5 there last week, and $181.99 a year ago this week. And that's your feeder summary for this week. Check out our website for more market information at marketnews.usda.gov. And from the Regional Market News Office in St. Joe, Missouri, we'll talk to you next week.